Lights, camera, action.
And nothing unites people like someone dying.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's sad and it's true, though.
The candy corn industry is a money laundering front.
What's the worst, acid trip you've ever had?
Well, this is Red Band Podcast, baby. Movies, music, conspiracies, deep existential crises. It's all inside and it's all unfiltered. So let's get started.
This is the big one, man.
This is huge.
This is the one we've been talking about since we started the podcast.
I don't see a lot of discourse about this. Maybe it happened when the shows were out. Maybe when they ended.
I haven't really heard this discussion, which is cool because we get to go into it with an unbiased kind of clean slate. We're bringing our own minds to it and multiple minds because we have a special guest too today, which is my very own brother and Office Parks and Rec enthusiast, Noah.
How's it going?
Welcome to the show. We've got a lot to talk about. This is a jam-packed episode, and I don't even know how you approach a topic like this. Office versus Parks and Rec. I don't know if the conversation starts with which one's better. I don't even know if you can have that conversation. Somebody might. There's going to be diehards of either side, but
sure.
There's a lot to unpack. I think we start with The Office. That show came first.
It did.
And that's also the show that I was introduced to first. And fun fact, I actually hated the show.
Really?
Initially, because it would come on on regularly scheduled program, like the CW or something. Yeah, so I would be watching Seinfeld, Friends, or whatever in that order. And then this show would come on and I'd be like, oh, this one again? I don't even get this show. It's not even funny.
You thought, what a downgrade from those other shows.
Yeah. I was like, let me see Phoebe and Ross and Rachel and let me see their antics again. I don't know what this show's about. And I would always change the channel every time it came on. And then one day it clicked and I just sat and I watched one episode and my life was never the same.
So my question is then, you must have never watched it when it was airing as it was airing. This is all post the final episode when you're seeing it on CW. Okay.
No, this was the show was still on. When I was hating on the show, Steve Carell hadn't even left yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I started getting into it. And then I'll openly admit, I've never cried at a movie or a TV show ever. I'm still undefeated to this day.
Yeah.
But one of the closest times I ever got was the episode when Steve Carell left.
Yeah.
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 That one started to get me.
Wow.
And I watched that because I think they were streaming the new episodes at the time on Hulu or something like that.
Right.
And, but anyway, yeah. So The Office, that's where I got started. And then I will also openly admit this. Love the show. Some might disagree with whether or not I'm a diehard fan simply because I've actually never finished the show. I've seen the last episode.
Right.
I watched the last episode when it came out, but there's a gap there between when Steve Carell left and the last episode that I kind of tapered off. I don't think I've seen season 8 or 9. It's very foggy for me.
Now, I might argue you don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
Noah,
okay.
What do you think about that?
You're not really missing a whole lot.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Carell was, pretty much the rock of the show. Mm-hmm. So when he leaves, I feel like they ran out a lot of story to continue with. So there wasn't a whole lot of things to dissect from there. It was basically just the decline of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, the only thing I think you should go back and check out is Will Ferrell's 3 or 4 episode run.
I have seen those.
Okay, you have
seen
those.
I think I've seen probably about a season and a half for sure after he left.
Right. Okay.
Because I saw all that. I saw when
that.
Will Ferrell came in. I've seen a little bit when Andy's taken over.
Yes.
Even a little bit of Dwight. And around the time that they start doing the saber, triangle, whatever, I don't even remember what that was about.
Yeah.
When they start doing that stuff is when I fell off. And I remember coming back in a little bit and seeing that Jim was trying to move to Philadelphia and start a sports something.
Yeah.
And it gets very sporadic with that for me. So I think I've seen all of season 6 or 7 whenever Michael left, like a season after.
It's pretty crazy that he left not that far into the show, it feels like, and then they made a bunch more seasons without him. When I'm like, he left season 5 or 6. That's pretty insane. That's not, Breaking Bad's 5 seasons. Like, you know what I mean? Like, shit. I mean, they should have just, but I don't know. I mean, our enthusiast here, I'm wondering, like, do you feel the same way? Do you think, like, it should have just ended? Or do you think they had to do what they had to do?
I mean, it was the end of Michael's story, but it wasn't the end of everyone else's.
I like that.
So, I feel like a lot of people want to see how Jim and Pam's relationship pans out because they are everyone's favorite. Even Angela and Dwight, everyone wants to know what's going to happen with that. They're very off and on throughout the seasons. So
it's true. There are multiple story threads still and characters.
Yeah.
To explore. But I also feel like The Office was around the same era, and I think we're entering a different era right now where a TV show's success and stuff is measured by how long it can actually go for.
Right.
You look at Friends, went 10 seasons. You look at a show that's even older than that, Married with Children.
Right.
Any of my Married with Children fans out there, comes on 4 a.m. sometimes. That's the only time you can see it. But great show, Ed O'Neill. That was like 10 seasons.
Yeah.
Modern Family nowadays. They just ended a couple years ago, 11 seasons.
Wow.
It's Always Sunny, right?
Sunny.
Is like 50 seasons.
Yeah.
Or all your cartoons, Family Guy, Simpsons.
Grey's Anatomy is like 20 seasons.
Fucking shit.
Yeah. It's Grey's Anatomy. So I think they were in that era too of that. Whereas nowadays, you got Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
5 seasons. There's this other show on Netflix I've talked about a couple times called Love. 3 seasons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're still in the midst of Euphoria, but I see Euphoria not going past 5 seasons,
right?
If that,
right?
And maybe that's just dramas. Maybe dramas they're like, unless you're Grey's Anatomy and you're on season 20. But so yeah, and I mean, then you look at Parks and Rec. What, 7 seasons?
Was that
something like that?
So that's my interesting piece of this. You never finished The Office. I never finished Parks and Rec.
Oh, okay.
And I also didn't watch the last episode.
Okay.
I may have only seen about 4 seasons of that.
The first 4 seasons are solid.
So good.
Solid of Parks and Rec, which we'll get to.
Yes.
But anyway, so yeah, The Office, I think I read somewhere that the cast actually came to them and were like, it's probably time to wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
So who's to say, they might have gone longer.
Now, do either of you guys know why Steve Carell left? Because I don't. I've never looked into that.
Unless I remember incorrectly, I think it was just one of those things where he wanted to explore other opportunities. I think he wanted to do more movies, take on bigger roles.
Yeah.
Which now you see his career he has. I mean, the man has a monster career now.
Yeah.
He's done comedies. He's done dramas. He's done movies that are Oscar nominated.
Yeah.
So... right move for him.
He knew.
He
was like,
knew.
I'm the guy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
and I mean, then you look at John Krasinski too.
Oh,
he went on to skyrocket. Acting, directing, A Quiet Place.
Yes.
Married Emily Blunt. I mean, he's living the life.
He's living the good
That's the biggest dub.
Yeah.
The Office it's amazing. I mean, I don't see... I understand some people, and there's even a part of me that feels like the post-Office renaissance kind of, I wouldn't say diminishes the show, but you get a lot of posers running around.
Yeah.
You hear me? There's a lot of posers running around who put I love The Office in their fucking Tinder bios.
Right.
And you're like, honey, like, you don't even know. Like, that's your comfort show. But do you understand?
Right.
And that's how I look at them in that way. So a lot of posers running around. But The Office really is, it's kind of that, how would you say, almost like a deconstruction of like the sitcom. Like you said, there's Seinfeld, you're watching some Friends, and then you got The Office, you know, and it kind of exists. And I mean, like, it really propped up that mockumentary style. Because before that, I don't know how much that was a thing.
I don't even know. The only thing I can maybe think of is Reno 911, but I don't know the timeline of which Reno 911 was hot. And I've never seen the show, but I know it's like, it's supposed to look like Cops, mockumentary style. And obviously, for anyone who doesn't know by now, this show originally was a British television show.
Yeah, right.
Created by Ricky Gervais. And then, of course, Ricky Gervais was a writer, producer, whatever, on the American version of it. But you're right. I mean, I think The Office really launched the mockumentary look and feel. You even have shows now like Brooklyn Nine-Nine where it's not a mockumentary, but the style of it is semi-mockumentary, where they have those zooms, they have the punch-ins, the quick whips.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. I love what that allows you to do for comedy. Mm-hmm. There's so many bits, which is why when we did our show, The Z Team, which is on YouTube, shameless plug.
Check it out. Go.
That was a really easy route to go for students, for someone who has little to no money to make something. You can make a mockumentary comedy and it works. Mm-hmm. You can have minimal lighting set up. You can have a shot that maybe the sky's a little bit more blown out because it's supposed to look raw.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe there's like a science there where it's a little more relatable to people. We're like, oh, this feels somewhat more real, more grounded. I can relate immediately to what's happening here. But there are people like my mom, for some reason, she just can't get into the show.
Huh.
Which, like I said earlier, is where I was at initially. So maybe the mockumentary thing, it's that's such a different format that people aren't used to. They're used to the standard sitcom, set up joke, 3-camera setup, whatever.
Right.
This is a little bit different. But the show itself, well, you mentioned earlier about the Tinder bio.
Yeah.
Definitely been on that, but I test. I say, what's your favorite episode? Really?
Yeah.
You're an Office fan? What's your favorite episode? So what's your favorite episode? If you had to pick one. Because I've got mine.
Let me sit on that one for a second.
All right, I got you. Let me hit you with my personal favorite. My personal favorite is the dinner party episode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That one, for whatever reason, no matter how many times I've seen it, it gets me every single time. Plus, the bloopers from it are almost even better than the episode itself. It's just, there's something about it, man. It's gold. It's a golden episode.
Yes.
The drama, the cringe, the uncomfortability, the jokes. Oh my God. It's my favorite episode.
Yeah. I think you're on point, and that has to be in my top 5. I ran through my head a little bit. And I think there's a part of me where I think my favorite episode, and I don't remember if it's a 2-parter, but kind of where Jim and Pam stay at Dwight's farm, you know? And I think the reason I like that episode is because they use that setting of outside of the office to just abstractly expand upon this character of fucking Dwight. You get the Moes in there. You know what I mean? I think that has to be my favorite because they play with that. They play with it so much and they really it's one thing when Dwight's inside the office saying all this crazy shit oh, this is the kind of person I am outside of here. But when you get to see the kind of person he is outside of there, and then they really just turn it into this bizarre, almost like Children of the Corny type fucking weird shit cult. I don't know what's going on. It's not like they're showing that, but that's the feeling you almost get where you're like, are these people okay? Is this like an inbred family or something? You know what I mean? What's going on here? So I think that's my favorite.
What about you?
I got at least 2, but I'd say the dinner party.
Yeah.
Especially now, Peacock has the extended version.
Mm-hmm. They do. They're like the Super Office fan episodes.
Wow.
I need to go see that because I haven't yet.
It's fantastic. I've seen it probably about 4 times now. I think another one of my favorites is, what is it? They send Michael and Dwight to that convention. Mm-hmm. And he throws a party in the hotel room that nobody comes to.
And one guy straggles in and the door's open and there's music and drinks. And the guy's looking around is this the party?
Yeah.
Michael's like, Party Central. What can I fix you? And the guy's already walked away. He's a drink. He's like, all right.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
Good one. Well, I think that's what scene you just described really encapsulates what is so charming about The Office. And it is, as I've always heard it, it's Michael Scott is this overcompensating sad man with the biggest heart in the world. Mm-hmm. And that's a relatable protagonist.
Yeah.
A little more than friends in New York City who have a skyrise loft and work like jobs that could never pay for that.
They work like 10 hours a week.
Yeah, they work like 10 hours a week and hang out with each other all the time.
Yeah.
Or like Jerry Seinfeld, who's Jerry fucking Seinfeld, the fucking star comedian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who just does the same shit. And
Yeah.
it's like, but you got this like Michael Scott. He works this like middle class job. He's just trying to make it in the world. He's just another guy, you know, and he just wants to make people laugh, but he's just so insecure. And yet he loves harder than anyone has ever loved. And actually, I think the subversive nature of him too, and he represents the boss very well, right? Well, maybe not, because most bosses actually suck. But like he sucks, but he doesn't suck in a way that's like evil. It's like, you know, he's just like kind of annoying. But, you know, I think the subversion of it, and just like by having this guy who at first glance, and I think that's why with Ricky Gervais, it's great, but he doesn't have that what Steve Carell had with that lighthearted. Like Ricky Gervais, he can have that, but you know him, and I don't even think he's just kind of brash. He's a fucking British kind of asshole. Like that's just his deal. But so to have Steve Carell, someone who can play the character that way and still do that, but then have that side of him where you just want to give him a hug. And that you as the audience member, you're kind of confused, especially in those early on seasons where his antics are super, super high and you don't know how you feel about him yet. And you're just kind of sitting there like, boy, if he was my boss, he would annoy me so much.
Yeah.
And yet I want to coddle him like a baby.
I think a lot of people hate Michael, and I think it's just because they see a lot of themselves in him. So it's hard for them to like, you know, someone who tries their hardest to be outgoing, have the most friends they can have, and yet they can't. And they live a sad life, and they're bachelors, bachelorettes, and all they want is a nice big juicy life with a family and tons of friends that are always there for them and have their back, and they can't. So I think that really pisses them off and gives them a reason to hate Michael.
Get wrecked.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. And then they'd rather, you know, have a look at Jim and Pam, who are actively kind of engaging in that.
And they have the perfect fairy tale.
Exactly. Brilliantly said.
Yeah.
That's an expertise.
Yes.
That is office expertise, baby.
Yeah, and to have a character that you simultaneously want to scream at and hug is great.
Yes.
The Office too, what I really respected as a fellow creator myself is just the fact of how many cast members are actually writers as well on the show. You got Mindy Kaling, BJ Novak, who play Ryan and Kelly Kapoor. You've got one of Dwight's cousins, Mose, I don't think it's Mose. I think it's the other one.
Yeah, that's
he's a
what's
writer
his
on the
name?
show as
He's
well.
the showrunner.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah,
Well, he's the
showrunner.
showrunner of Parks and Rec.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah. So he was a producer writer on The Office and then created Parks and Rec.
There you go.
I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but the only reason I got kind of into him is because I listened to this Dan Le Batard show. It's a sports show, and he's big involved with them. And that's when Dan did an interview with him, and that's when I my eyes were open. I was like, this is the guy?
Yeah.
You're telling me Mose was the guy? So yeah.
And same with Toby.
Yes.
Him and his brother.
Okay.
And his brother, I think, was married at one time to Angela.
Wow.
For a little bit of a run there, I believe, if I remember that correctly. And so, yeah, just as like someone who is in this realm, I like the idea because I've done that too. I've worn many hats where I write something and I'm also in it just due to lack of resources. Mm-hmm. And so that was something that I really liked about the show too. And it's I don't know, it's just made it more relatable to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy how it became a fucking melting pot of talent. Mm-hmm. That's when you know you got something special on your hands. Other shows like that, I mean, obviously Parks and Rec. The Atlanta comes to mind.
Modern Family.
Yeah, Modern Family. Atlanta, where each member of the cast became huge movie stars all around. Euphoria.
Yeah.
A lot of huge movie stars coming out of that now. Not even just Zendaya. So yeah, when you get that melting pot of creativity and of people who are going to be stars and are going to be able to have their own personal careers after this, even if it's not just in front of the camera, because I imagine BJ Novak has done other things, even though he's usually a little guy in some movie afterwards. You know, Mindy's had many shows, Krasinski, as we just talked about. So
BJ's got a movie coming out this year.
Yeah. BJ?
That he's directing and starring in, and I was an extra in it.
What?
Yeah.
They filmed it out here?
They did.
Okay.
And it sucked because it was like, man, it was probably about a week before everything here shut down for pandemic reasons. And this summer, I believe July of this year, it's slated to come out.
Real quick, what's it called?
Right now, I think it's called Vengeance.
Okay. Ooh. A little Batman.
So it's supposed to be like a comedy, dark comedy.
I like that.
But yeah, it's got BJ Novak, Ashton Kutcher, Dove Cameron, which Dove Cameron was in all the scenes that I was on set for.
Not Kutcher.
They shot it here at Dirty Bourbon.
Okay.
So that's where I was.
Love that. Hey.
So if you want to see me in the background at a bar scene, go check out this movie in July, I guess, is when it's coming out. I haven't seen a trailer yet, but...
So we need to go ahead and, just because it was brought up, you know, we need to give Michael Schur, that's the name.
Michael Schur.
I can't believe I forgot it. We need to give him his dues. He was a co-executive producer of The Office, and I think that's where his deal started more. He was also a writer on SNL, or a producer. So that started with The Office, but he wasn't like the showrunner, but he became the lead writer. Well, I believe he became the lead writer, and obviously Mindy and BJ were there, and then I think maybe they elevated to, and he was more producer potentially and still a writer. He is the executive producer and I believe creator and showrunner of Parks and Rec.
Awesome.
He did The Good Place, executive producer and I believe showrunner.
Wow.
And then also Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh shit. Well,
We just talked about that.
there you go.
So he's
that's
the guy.
like that's his style. He likes that kind of comedic style and vision, and so I mean, great. Michael Schur, good shit.
There you go.
Good shit. The other thing I also just love about The Office is how every now and then they would pop off with an intro that just came from left field, and you were like, "Holy shit, what an opening!" Two that come to mind are obviously the fire episode.
The fucking, oh my God. Yes.
Dwight starts a fire to test everyone's fire readiness skills.
Yeah.
And that intro is like insanity. One of my all-time favorite intros. And then the other one that I can think of that just was like, oh my God, is, okay, no, now I thought of two more.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Michael steps on the George Foreman grill and burns his foot, and Dwight, the opening to that is like the phone call, obviously, and Dwight is like obviously so eager to go help him,
right?
And so he runs down, and he like, you hear his car, and then you hear a crash, and everyone runs to the window to look out, and he crashed into a pole.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my God, is he okay? And he like stumbles out, and then he stumbles to the back of his car and throws up all over the window. And then he goes and he drives off. And the rest of the episode, he's unlike himself because he has a major concussion.
Yes. Yes.
And then obviously you've got the classic. I mean, this one has been the shots of this one have been thrown around everywhere. And that's when Michael runs over Meredith. And he's like, I think that was the start of season, whatever, 2 or 3.
I think it was.
And he's like, I'm in a good place. My people are doing great. I am blessed. Boom. It's Meredith.
Now, I thought you were going to say Kevin dropping the chili.
Oh, that's
another one.
Kevin
right?
dropping the chili.
Iconic.
That's true. That's got to be the most
top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those other 3 absolutely too. Yeah, no, the cold open is such a wonderful device.
It is.
And,
I love a good cold open.
Maybe an honorable mention when he's coming back to start Michael Scott Paper Company, and he pulls up and he's, it's Brittany, bitch.
Yes.
And then he tries to park and hits both of the cars, and he's like, I'm not going to fit in this one.
And then he fits in the tightest space possible.
He climbs out of his car.
Oh,
I actually think
cheese puffs.
I think season 5 might be one of like my favorite season of all the seasons. Season 5 was just so solid. That's when and I think it was really long too, like 20 plus episodes.
Yeah.
That was when you had the whole arc of Michael being disrespected by Dunder Mifflin.
Yep.
He leaves. Idris Elba comes in for like a stint of episodes. He starts Michael Scott Paper Company. He comes back at the end. That's got to be one of my favorite seasons.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's ironically, it sounds like it was close to when he was leaving. So they really hit their stride at that point. You know?
That might have been. Maybe he knew. Like this was the peak of what I'm going to do with this show. Time to.
And I guess, though, what comes to mind with that is a kind of almost not knowing what to do with his character and kind of almost realizing that we have two options. You got Michael Scott Paper Company. Okay, that can only play out so long. What is his motivation? He wants a wife, a family. Mm-hmm. What do? Do you keep him lingering around, not getting what he wants, even though you've already done that for 5 seasons? Or, I feel like maybe they wrote themselves into a little bit of a corner.
And there's a part of me now that you're saying that I would have loved to see him like have kids on the show, and like how he, he has to bring them to work and how he deals with that and trying to raise them. And I mean, we kind of see a little tiny glimpse of it when Jan has her baby. Yeah. But he doesn't even like that kid. Like in the episode, he talked about how much he loves holding babies, and that when he held that one, he felt nothing.
Right.
Just gave it away right away.
Yeah. So, but then, I mean, you're right. Like maybe there's only so much. Maybe we don't need to see that from him. Maybe we're like, he finally did it. Let's just in our heads imagine that he's living the life he always wanted.
But now that you're saying that, thinking about if he would have stayed around and what they could have did, they actually could have done stuff with him. They should have. And that would have been a moment, right? Michael Scott has a baby. That could have been a whole season leading up to
his.
That. Funny antics around the pregnancy, like I could have imagined Michael Scott, like doing funny stuff. Maybe he gets a pregnancy test. He pees on it himself, right? Like, like something like that.
He's like practicing for her.
And I mean, to an extent, we had a glimpse of that. I mean, he had Dwight push a watermelon out between his legs.
Yeah.
For a baby that wasn't even going to be his.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So we kind
of know what type of person he would be if he was to be expecting.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like my I haven't seen the rest of Parks and Rec, but it's not an argument to say The Office is bad. It's not. It's amazing. But one of the things that hinders it is just Michael leaving, running like 2 seasons too long or 3, and then, and then it's done. And it's like, ooh, if we're having an argument, or not even an argument, but if we're just having a little bit of a brainstorm about Office and Parks and Rec, that kind of, and we don't want, and not everyone likes to talk about that. You know what I mean? Because it's been revived in a way that's, it can do no wrong, but it's like, but it did it. It kind of did,
And I think you bring up, you reminded me of something too. Right now, it's very hip and cool to hate The Office.
You're right.
Just like how it was very hip and cool to hate Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
No, yeah.
Right now, it's very cool to hate 2 things: Friends and The Office.
Right.
The Office isn't even funny. The Office is garbage. Never been funny. That's That's what's trending right now, is to hate The Office. Why? I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
No clue.
Well, the other thing too is I don't know how it happened or why it happened, but when The Office first came out, it tanked hard. I think they almost got their show canceled out in like the 2nd season. Like it was just not doing well. Even all the actors and stuff, they were just saying like, I don't know what we can do from here.
Yeah.
Their ratings were bad. Everything was going downhill. And now, what is it like? I don't even remember how many years later. And it just came up out of nowhere and just sparked a fire. And like young kids who don't work, the idea is to be working in an office. It's an office, set. But yeah, it just came back out of nowhere. And now it's back at the phase where everyone wants to hate on it. And I think it's just because they have nothing else to hate on.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Direct. Again, you guys are just getting right jab, left jab today.
I mean, it's true. Everyone my age is pretty stupid. So
I agree with that.
They don't have an original thought in their mind.
So
they just go with whatever's trending.
Oh, man, you guys are getting salt and peppered today on the face. Let's get it.
This is the talks I love.
Yeah.
How old are you exactly? Just
20, almost
All right.
21.
Hey, ladies, you hear that? No.
You hear that? Don't be stupid, none of you.
Yeah, I think you make a valid point, though. You're right. You know, just like when it was time to like The Office, that's all people did. And then the second it turned on it, that's all people are doing.
Yep.
My question is, or not question, but you brought up a great point. And so I can't remember correctly. I almost think this is how it happened for me, though. And that's why, similar to Breaking Bad, The Office going on Netflix in the midst of its running is what brought it up in the beginning. And like same with Breaking Bad. Like Breaking Bad season 1 kind of tanked. Season 2 was, people were interested. By the time season 3 is coming out, it's on Netflix and everyone's losing their fucking minds. So it seems like, I think the same thing happened with The Office, right? Does anyone?
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll be honest, if you've watched season 1 of The Office, I'll be honest, dry.
It is dry.
It is pretty dry. And it looks, nowadays, it looks outdated.
Right.
For sure. And so I think it's unfortunately one of those things where you need to kind of get over that hump.
Yeah.
And when you do, you will be rewarded greatly because, it only gets better. In my opinion, for sure, it gets better. It doesn't get worse. After Michael leaves. But yeah, the season 1, it's short. I think they only had like 5 episodes, something like that. Yeah, 5 episodes, and it's definitely not their peak. And so if people are judging it based off season 1, you're missing it.
Well, and that's what people do, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with BoJack Horseman. People are always like, I watched 3 episodes of BoJack Horseman and I thought this show was pretty weird and lame. And then you're like, but did you watch episode 6? Because as soon as it hits episode 6, from that point forward, it becomes like the greatest show ever. So it's the same thing with The Office, right? Yeah,
and The Office, like we said earlier, was almost an experiment for America with this style of show and comedy. So season 1, those first 5 episodes, they're probably still experimenting and figuring out timing and cuts. And even if you watch it, the cuts that they do are so different from even season 2.
Yeah.
Like they do a lot of interesting cutaways and they do a lot of like establishing shots around the office, a little like fax machine going, just people typing on their computers that are no more the rest of the season, right? They use the time a lot more effectively. So those kinds of things, if people are judging it off that, you're definitely missing it. You got to give it more than just the first 5 episodes. Absolutely. Then, of course, now we have the conversation of if this show was out now, it would be canceled so fast. And Steve Carell has said this himself. He was like, in today's climate, this show would not run. Michael Scott as a character would not be cleared for takeoff.
So that's the confusion, right? It's like it got its resurgence in the modern era of people who claim to be upstanding, politically correct individuals, who are putting it on their dating profiles that they love The Office. But it's true. Like if it was airing right now, that's what people would follow. Right. It was like, no. But that's what's crazy. And that's what makes these shows so great, especially is that they were pretty simple television comedies that aired on prime time. And they had that tinge of, dark humor. They had that tinge of elevating, you think about even the idea of Creed.
Oh yeah.
Right? You're like, that's this like underlying tone of like, this guy's like a straight up serial killer, insane person. Like
when he shows up on Halloween with bloodstains on his shirt and he's like, that timing was perfect or whatever. That was convenient.
So if that can't exist anymore, if you can't get a primetime comedy, which you can't, that is willing to push the envelope a little bit, which you won't have anymore, that's not a world I want to live in.
Yeah. A world where The Office can't make it. Who wants to live in that world?
Yeah.
Where the comedy in The Office. And that's what's stupid is that to think that The Office is considered pushing the envelope. That blows my mind. To think that like, if we were to make The Office today, that would be, they'd be pushing it. We'd be crossing the line. The fuck out of my face.
And that's the point of Michael Scott's character.
Exactly.
He's your boss who's a little inappropriate, who needs to sit in a sexual harassment training seminar every once in a while, who needs some racial sensitivity training. If anything, it should thrive more in this climate. If anything, people should be more open to it, because it would show an accurate depiction of exactly what kind of we are doing now, which is like, hey, that's a little, boss, we need you to sit down and get and watch this video, now, because you talked about your desk receptionist boobies, and so and that's the problem with that, right? Is you're right, and Steve Carell's right. It wouldn't thrive now, which is laughable, because that's the point of the show.
Yeah, and to think, you brought up the racial training too. You got Diversity Day, which is literally episode 2 of the entire show, and you see how he just makes that worse too. And that's the point of his character, is like he tries so hard that it actually hurts him.
Right.
Like he tries so hard to do good, and the harder he tries, the worse it gets. Yes. And that's why you want to give him a hug at the end of the day. You want to choke him, but you want to give him a hug. And on that, I think, we've touched on favorite episode now. Do you have a favorite character? Do you have a character that you absolutely hate? Ooh. Obviously, if you're Michael Scott, you hate Toby. I love that. I love his hate for Toby. I love when Toby walks in the room, Michael's like, why are you here? And of course, the opening when Toby returns and you got Michael screaming no, in only a way that Steve Carell could do, is phenomenal.
Yes.
I love the episode when he's saying goodbye to Toby and he's throwing a literal carnival in the parking lot. And he makes a song of, God, his hate for Toby is just beautiful. It's poetic.
Once again, relatable.
So
there's
relatable.
always that one person in your life who you just don't like.
Yes. And so if you have a favorite character, you have a character that you just hate or you thought was like, For me, it's hard to pick a favorite.
Yeah.
For sure, it's hard to pick a favorite. I think there's 2 characters that I kind of can't stand, and that is Gabe. Gabe is just like fucking, dude, you're so annoying.
You just want to snap him in half.
Yeah, your fucking face. And then at most of the time, it's like a love-hate though with Ryan. We're like, man, you're such a fucking douche. And that's the point. They all did great jobs portraying their characters, right? Like, you're such a douche and you love to hate him.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to say the thing about Gabe is that the actor, I like Silicon Valley because it allows that actor to be that kind of character, but like rated R. And that's why I think it works better. Okay. That's why I think in Silicon Valley, that guy is a lot better. Hot take. I don't like Andy.
Okay.
Yeah. He's probably my least favorite character. He's just, and that's why he's so good. That's why Ed Helms is great. That's why Ed Helms could only play Andy, but he's just, and I'm just not a fan. Like, if I worked in that office, he would be my Toby. You know what I mean? I'd be like, this fucking guy, and he's just like fucking playing a goddamn banjo or guitar or some shit. And I'd just be like rolling my fucking eyes and talking about his alma mater and fucking
Cornell.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. So Andy has to be my least favorite. I'm impartial on Jim. I gotta say, I like him, but I would never put him anywhere in my favorites category.
Okay.
I love John Krasinski.
Love John Krasinski.
But Jim, and maybe I need to rewatch. And then of course, I think my favorites gotta be like, I like Michael, I like Dwight. Those are, of course. I kind of like Angela.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've never heard anyone say that.
Just because her character's such a wonderful portrayal of like, that double life. You know what I mean? Like
the
that
uptight, like goody. but
uptight
also
goody, but she'll rock your world in the copy room. You know what I mean? Because she's got suppressed sexuality from her religious trauma or some shit. You know what I mean? And so I like Angela for that reason, just because I think she's interesting. So that's kind of my guilty pleasure character too. And then even Mindy's fucking hilarious. And I think
she got. That's the thing too. Real quick is that the characters changed a lot too from season 1. You look at Kevin.
Yes,
Kevin's character, who he didn't even have the like voice that he has the rest of the season. He didn't have that in season 1.
Right.
You look at Mindy too. She was a lot more like quiet and kind of just awkward. And then in like season 2 or 3 is when she became Kelly Kapoor.
Yes.
With this like yammering, like, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, did you see Brad Pitt, Angelina, this, that? And so I think the characters grew and changed and finally settled into themselves around season 2 or 3.
Yeah. And the reason I like Mindy Kelly is that like, I feel like, although I feel like the reason I like her is a lot of the reasons some people might not like her, but I think she literally, Mindy herself, injected a lot of what that show needed, which was kind of like a colorful character who was kind of just very like modern, very invested in pop culture, very invested in the zeitgeist, just because none of the other characters are like that.
Right. And
so I couldn't imagine the show without her kind of being like that, you know, that type of person. And so I gotta say, those are probably my top 4. I like Michael, Dwight, Angela, and Kelly.
And on your comment about Andy, I definitely agree. He's certainly not my favorite, but I think I hated him most when he was first introduced. Like that first season when he's working at the whatever branch, the other branch.
Stanford branch.
Yeah, the Stanford branch.
Yeah.
And then when he gets transferred over, I think when he comes back from his anger management that he was forced to take after putting a hole in the wall, I liked him better because he was like in the episode when Dwight is trying to beat the computer for most sales. And he's just there dancing with the air horn and like becomes his little cheerleader and like that small feud that the two of them have. And when he's playing the banjo at Christmas.
Right.
Those are some of his redeemable moments when I'm like, I kind of like Andy.
And once again, that's great writing because the way the character presents himself is like this very easygoing, like positive guy who is shown to have underlying anger issues. And I forgot about that completely. And you're right. Like that's how that kind of person is, literally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. That's true. That's good stuff.
Here we go.
Let's do it.
I don't like Phyllis.
Drop it.
I don't like the way she says popcorn.
I didn't even fucking think about her. So that's how forgettable she is. No, I'm just kidding. That's not.
Well, she was, fun fact about her, she was actually like one of the casting people.
That's true. Huh?
She was in casting at the time. And then she started reading with the actors. And then they were like, why don't you just play the character of Phyllis? Like, you're great.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't like Phyllis.
I don't like Phyllis.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly it is about her, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really hard to pinpoint it. There's just a lot of different things that I just can't like about her. And I can't also find any reasons to like her either.
Yeah.
She's a very in between. Like I can't pinpoint why I don't like her, but I also can't like her.
I wonder if it's the soft nature about her, the like mother goose, mother hen.
Yeah, she's like an elementary school librarian.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, who's like, she's a sweetheart, but don't you raise your voice.
Right. No running.
You'll see another
my
side
lobby.
of her. Right. Like you'll see the side of her that also in 20 years, if you walk past her house and your skin's a certain color, she might call the police.
Right.
I also don't like how she always uses Bob Vance as like an escape.
Right.
Don't make me call Bob. What the hell is he going to do?
Yeah.
What is he going to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Conspiracy. Bob Vance. Is he a part of the elites? The Pennsylvania elites?
I think he's involved with the mob.
Yeah.
Maybe has some connections to the Scranton Strangler.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's fun.
I've never heard that anywhere. That just came to me right now.
I like that. That's good.
Bob Vance has connections to the Scranton Strangler, who the Scranton Strangler, now this one has been put on the internet.
Of course.
Might be Toby Flenderson.
Yeah.
Yes. The green car in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And Creed is just so good that they're not even on his scent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you need that, right? Every show needs a Creed, every show needs a Kramer.
Yes.
Just that like character that you're like, what goes on in your world?
Yeah.
Right?
Dennis.
He's like when he's like, when Pam gets Michael's chair, I will get Pam's chair. Then I will have 7 chairs. Only one more to go. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
What do you need 8 chairs for? What's he doing?
He was
You
smelling
need
it.
I like it when everybody transfers over. Scranton absorbs Stanford, and there's that lady who starts nursing her kid inside the office, and Creed just takes a picture of her boobs and puts it on his computer.
Office would be canceled.
It would be canceled, yeah 100%.
Okay. Who's your favorite characters?
I don't really know if I would say I have a favorite because everyone works perfectly in their own way. You know, you could be cliche and just say, you know, Jim and Pam are your favorite or what
Right.
or whatever. But I mean, you know, they're up there. I wouldn't say that they're my favorite, but they're, you know, because everybody does dream and have that fairy tale
Yeah.
fantasy. So yeah, Jim and Pam are up there. I love Michael. Dwight, he's just a whole nother species of human.
I think the 2 characters too that we're neglecting, we haven't even mentioned them, but I would say are the most, maybe they're not your favorite, but they're the most relatable. Like if you were in this office, you'd be one of these 2. And that is Stanley.
Yeah.
Rolling his eyes at everything. Like,
Yeah.
can I just please leave?
Yeah.
And then you got Daryl from the warehouse.
Absolutely.
I love Daryl. He's funny.
Love
Yes.
it because he messes with Michael. He's not afraid to mess with him. When Michael sent that email with the picture of Jan from Barbados, and he like blew it up into this big poster and put it in the warehouse.
That's so good.
But there's-
No,
Oh my God.
you're
Also
right.
to an extent though, because then there's some questionable things he did, like, you know, took a picture of Michael's salary. That's pretty mean. That's pretty mean.
I didn't know he did that.
I
Oh
forgot
wait,
about that.
yeah, that's right. He was like,
then-
I got to text this to Roy.
Yeah, and then continued to make fun of his female suit that he bought.
Yes, yes.
I feel like that one's mean. The big poster of Jan, that's pretty funny.
That was
That's
funny.
hilarious. No, you're right. Stanley actually, he came across my mind, and I didn't fixate on it long enough. But he's in my top 5, absolutely. Yeah, because he plays, and he is the most relatable because he's very much like, you know, when I clock out, I clock out.
Yeah.
You know, he's very much like, you guys don't know what I do in my personal life because I don't want you to. He's like, this is a paycheck.
Yes.
Like, and then I'm gone. Like, this has nothing to do with anything else. And I roll and I'm out of here. Do I have to be here right now?
Yeah.
I'm gone. You
Doing
know?
his crosswords.
That's why Florida Stanley was like, whoa.
Oh yeah, Florida
yeah.
Stanley's good time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Because he lets loose.
Oh, you know what? That's true. I do love that episode too, the like beach day that they take.
Yeah.
I really do love that episode when Michael's trying to find like the right person to take his place, and they go beach day, and like one of the funniest bits is when they're in the sumo suits and Andy falls in the water and he's just floating forever and no one cares, no one even notices he's missing. And then one of the shots is like dark and he's like floating and the light shines on him. He's like, hello, is that so? Please,
I'm with a
tell
group
them.
called Thunder Mifflin.
Yeah, with Thunder Mifflin. And the thing about The Office too now, before we transition into Parks and Rec, for me, The Office is a huge comfort show.
Yes.
That's a show that I can fall asleep to in a good way, not because it's boring, but it's comforting enough where I can leave it on and I feel cozy and I feel like safe.
Yeah.
A warm hug.
Yeah, like a warm hug, like it's a bedtime story, and they're just singing me to sleep with the songs of mockumentary.
Absolutely.
It's a comfort. I can put it on in the background while I'm making dinner, if I'm cleaning the house. It's a show that, like, if I'm just like, I don't know what to watch, the world sucks, throw on The Office. Then now we transition into Parks and Rec. And I want to say this now, maybe as we talk, it'll change. I think The Office is more of like my go-to, like it never fails to satisfy.
Right.
And I laugh really, really hard at episodes like The Dinner Party. But for me, I feel like with Parks and Rec, the way I laugh at The Dinner Party, I laugh way more often like that during Parks and Rec.
Yes.
For whatever reason. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it takes the top spot for me.
Right.
But we'll get into that. So Parks and Rec. Now you have a show about probably one of the most boring departments in like the government.
Yes.
Parks and Recreation. And they found a way to make it entertaining. That to me is genius writing, first of all.
That enough is brilliant.
Secondly, star-studded cast. Amy Poehler,
Yep.
Aziz Ansari,
Yep.
Chris Pratt, Aubrey Plaza,
Yeah.
Nick Offerman,
Rashida Jones.
Rashida. Yes, thank you, Rashida Jones.
Well said. Yep.
And in later seasons, Rob Lowe,
Yes.
Adam
Scott.
Adam
Yeah.
Scott. Absolutely. I mean, dude, that show is stacked, and everyone crushed their performances.
Yep.
Everyone nailed their characters 100% right out the gate.
Yes. Yes. And having that, and I think that everyone nailed their characters in a way that is in the first season, in a way that The Office didn't necessarily have yet, and took them a little while to find. But that's just because I think really everyone played themselves in Parks and Rec. And I think in The Office, there was a lot more, there were some elements to these actors' selves, obviously someone like Mindy or something. But like you think about just Aziz's character. I mean, one of the people who's really just not playing in a blown up version of themselves is kind of just Amy Poehler, because Amy Poehler is really being a character that's not how Amy Poehler is in real life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's so funny and she's a different kind of personality. But yeah, Chris Pratt's goofy ass, Aubrey Plaza, literally just
She's
playing.
just like weird, but in a good way.
Exactly. Yeah. Aziz is Aziz,
Yeah.
He's just Aziz. And then Nick Offerman really playing an intensely blown up version of himself, abstractly, but it's just him.
Right, it's not far from the mark.
He actually like does woodworking stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And he even has his face on a bottle of Lagavulin whiskey.
Right.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, too, with the writing, I just feel like every word that comes out of these characters' mouths is just great.
Yes.
Like, you believe, like, that is what this character would say. And that's something that if you've ever taken a writing course or whatever that they teach you, is like everything should be exactly what this character would do, how they would think, walk, speak. And I just think they really nailed that in this show.
Yeah, not what the writer would say, right? Not what you as a writer would say, and then you just all your characters just sound like you. Yeah. This is a great example of these characters are these characters, and you believe that they are just real. You believe that they are exactly who they are, legitimately, and that's the brilliance, and especially Nick Offerman. What's the character in the show name?
Ron Swanson.
Ron Swanson.
I think he might be my favorite character.
Yeah,
if I had to
like
pick
that.
my favorite character,
Hands
it's
down.
probably him.
I have a question, since I didn't see later on in the later seasons. How did they handle Chris Pratt getting hot?
Honestly,
Yeah.
I feel like he got less funny.
I agree.
A little bit. Not a whole lot to where you're not laughing, but I think he got hotter and now he's cool and he's not as goofy or funny. He's still very much the character, but I laugh a lot more at him in earlier seasons before he got Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, he got hotter, he got more money, and he found Christ.
Yeah.
And once you find Christ,
You lose a sense of humor.
he's a little I could see Chris Pratt going a little Kanye. Not bipolar, but Christy. Like, you know what I mean? He's like a little more like Chris Pratt has definitely like in real life become more like American Sniper and less like his character in Parks and Rec.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So the thing about Parks and Rec that immediately comes to mind in contrast with The Office is with The Office, it's like, I know we just talked about how the characters in Parks and Rec are like their characters, but it did take them time to find their footing. I feel like The Office found their footing a lot quicker and then petered out. I feel like Parks and Rec started a little rocky, even though the episodes were amazing, in terms of their overall arc, because I can't even remember the name of fucking Amy Poehler's first love interest.
Oh, right.
Literally,
Oh,
because
yeah.
they started off with her in love with this guy.
Yeah.
And then they had to get into Adam Scott, and then that's when the show seemed to find its literal ground.
I honestly forget about that guy.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
and that guy left too, like after the first season, I think.
Right.
Let me look it up.
Yeah, whoever even the fuck
is
his
his
name
name?
is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because and so you think about like Jim and Pam was set up literally
Since, like, day one.
Since day one. And you have your main character, you have your Leslie Knope, and obviously you're gonna need to get your Leslie Knope a love interest. And they kind of fumbled that bag in the first season or two. Was it 2 seasons?
I think it was 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So this guy's name is Mark in the show.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. Mark
unforgettable.
Brenowitz.
Forgettable, excuse me.
Yeah.
And then that's when you got, and I guess that's what Parks and Rec does interestingly, because Parks and Rec begs the question, what if Michael Scott was Jim? And that's
Right.
and that's what Leslie Knope gets to be, right? She gets to be Jim and Michael Scott. Like, so she gets to be the person having the love story and the wacky boss.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
So you got this guy, Michael Schur, who is
Yeah.
like the driving force with these shows. And you see a lot of similarities. You see the boss who takes their job so seriously. Like they will die for this job. Leslie Knope will die in her office.
Yes.
And Michael Scott will die in his office. They love their line of work so much. You have a Toby character. You have so in The Office it's Toby. In obviously Parks and Rec it's Jerry, Gary, Larry, which I love that running bit that they like never get his name right.
Right.
God, yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got obviously the Jim and Pam. You've got the Andy and April.
Which is cool. Yeah, there's like two love stories. So that
There's
that's
a
its
couple
own
of
Jim
love
and Pam.
stories. I mean, even Ron.
Yeah, even Ron.
Oh, and I
his
love
wives.
I love the
wives.
running bit of him and his Tammys,
Yes.
his ex-wife Tammy 1 and Tammy 2, which
Yeah.
Tammy 1 is played by his in real life wife.
Right. And I like the Andy and April because compared to the Jim and Pam, because Jim and Pam is very cookie cutter. It's very suburban. It's very, a craft beer and a glass of wine while watching the evening news.
Yeah.
It's the fantasy.
It's the fantasy, but like April and Andy are like, that's more relatable.
Right,
Like
they're
we're
eating-
young, we're grimy, like we're fucking, we're farting in front of each other.
They're
type of
eating
deal.
beans off a frisbee.
Yes, exactly.
They don't have it figured out at all.
They have
all.
the 3-legged dog, champion.
Right. Yeah, there's something about that that's, you love the Jim and Pam, but you love the Andy and April because you're like, and then it comes down to like, our flaws are out in the open and we love each other through that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like I love my goofy ass boyfriend and his fucking band. I love my girlfriend, my wife who will probably stab you in the neck when you look away, like kind of deal. And that's the type of love story. And you just said it, it's like Michael Schur, he looks at The Office and then he goes, okay, how can I take some of these elements and twist them up a little bit? Or how can I make them a little more interesting? How can I make them a little more relatable even? You know what I mean? How can I even throw a little bit of extra, a little dark magic on it and make it a little even more edgier.
Yeah.
Like that's really what makes, and it's hard because The Office is great, but you do have to see Parks and Rec as an evolution from The Office at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think back to the Jim and Pam thing. You love the fantasy of Jim and Pam. You love the reality of Andy and April.
Right.
That's what I would say. And I do think something interesting that they did differently with this show is it's very much a workplace comedy, but they had one singular story thread throughout the entire series, which was fixing the giant pit outside of April's home
Wow.
and turning that into a park.
Ansel.
Yeah, Anne's home.
Right. Because Anne and Andy are first together, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's cool too, especially in the sense of you get Pam in her original man, what's his name?
Roy.
So you got the Pam and Roy. So like the Anne and Andy storyline kind of begs the question of like, what if we saw Roy and Pam a little bit longer? Except Roy was a little more aggro, alcoholic, potential like domestic-y. But like, you know, two people who aren't supposed to be together, you know, and then seeing them branch off and find the right person kind of thing. I guess what comes to mind is like pop culture staples, quotable moments that still live with us. And immediately what comes to mind with Parks and Rec is treat yourself.
Treat yourself. Love it.
I mean, you know, that is something that we say to this day. That is something that will be said for generations. And one day, some kid in the year 2050 is going to be like, where does that come from? And you're going to be able to sit them down and show them Parks and Rec and be like, it comes from this hilarious ass show. And it might be because my brain is feeling a little foggy, but I'm trying to think of The Office. Like, do we have some quotables that stick with us?
Do we have a treat yourself? Basically?
Do we have a treat yourself from The Office?
I do. I think so. We have Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Michael Scott, I think, is probably the most quotable because he says the dumbest shit.
Yeah.
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
That's true. Okay, that's definitely one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's same level in my head. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But definitely, you know, the treat yourself thing.
Tom and Donna, they go on their treat. They have annually one day where they just go all out. They splurge.
Yes.
And treat yourself is their catchphrase that whole entire day. And they've got Adam Scott's character who is like down in the dumps, and they see him just sitting on a bench eating like a sad cup of like microwave ramen noodles. And they're like, should we invite him? And Tom's, of course, like hesitant. He's like, no, he's going to be a downer. And they decide to do it. And they bring him along, and like he finds like a Batman suit, like a whole ass full Batman costume. And he just looks like such an idiot. And I love it. And he starts crying while he's in the Batman suit.
Yes.
And his face is so funny. And he's wondering if he should buy it. And of course they turn to him and they're like, treat yourself. And so he buys it.
Thanks, I really needed this.
Yeah. He's like, thanks, I really needed this, you guys.
So that's a super solid episode, and I think as far as favorite episodes go, that has to be up there. But I think I have my favorite episode. I was a little bit quicker to be able to find my favorite episode of Parks and Rec than The Office.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know if that means anything.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
But I was very much able to pinpoint.
It means one of two things.
Yeah.
It either means you like the show better, or it means that The Office, you have so many favorite episodes, it's hard to narrow it down. Whereas Parks and Rec, it's like this one. Those are like my favorite.
And there's more to pick from The Office.
True.
And I've seen more of The Office.
Also true.
Right?
Well, let's hear it. I'm dying to hear it.
So it has to be the episode where Jerry says he got mugged. And it turns out that he just dropped his burrito in the lake, right? And he was just trying to like bend over and pick it up, and he fell.
Yeah.
Because isn't that also the episode where Andy Samberg's in it? And he's kind of like the what's it called? I hope that's the same episode. Maybe it's not. Where he's like the Forest Service guy who talks really loud.
Oh, yeah, he's the Forest Ranger guy, right?
Forest Ranger guy who talks really loud. And I'm trying to remember if that's the same episode. In my head, that's the same episode.
Maybe it's honestly not. Don't know. I honestly can't clarify.
But the episode where Jerry, he says he gets mugged, and then it just turns out he dropped a burrito.
Yeah.
And he was trying to pick it up, and then they're watching footage of it at the end and just fucking laughing at him. That's my favorite.
My favorite, I'd say, is the Lil Sebastian Memorial.
Oh, man, that's a great one.
Yes, dude. Yes.
And
that is
on
my
that,
favorite.
Yeah, and on that, I'll say I think Ron Swanson's the most quotable character of the whole show.
Right.
But the Lil Sebastian Memorial, again, Ron Swanson quote right out the gate. He comes into the office and he's like, I saw the flag was at half mast and I thought, all right, another bureaucrat ate it. Then I found out Lil Sebastian died. Half mast is too high. Show some damn respect.
So good.
Or just, He's a very simple man. I've only cried 2 times in my life. Once when I was 7 and I was hit by a school bus. And the second when I found out Lil Sebastian had passed.
Crying is acceptable at 2 locations. At a funeral and the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, sorry, just a one-off about the Lil Sebastian thing. It just brings to mind, and this is a praise to both shows, and this is why we love them, I think, and this is why they're relatable, I think, is because you think about like a Lil Sebastian, and it's like you're a local thing that only the locals get.
Yes.
Your small town deal. I feel the same about Scranton. I'm like, that's why we relate and love these shows, because they feel like it's not about, it's not Succession, it's not about rich people, it's not Sopranos, it's not about mobsters, it's not Breaking Bad, it's not about meth cooking dynasty. It's just about regular people doing regular shit in regular places.
And like being diehards of their small towns.
Exactly.
That's what both shows have in common. Is they are small towns that little to nobody ever has heard about.
Right.
And these people are living, breathing these towns.
Yes.
And I also love the bit that Ben, Adam Scott's character, he comes in obviously from out of town and he doesn't get it. He doesn't get the appeal of Lil Sebastian, and they're like hating him for it.
Oh God. Yeah. So what's yours? What's your favorite?
My favorite has to be when Leslie Knope is trying to run and everything is just a mess, and she has that speech at the ice rink, and like Tom's in charge of getting the carpet for it. Ron's in charge of building the stage. Someone else was I think maybe April was in charge of getting the basketball. No, not April. Anne was in charge of getting the like local basketball player who like in high school had this crazy dunk, and that's all anyone can talk about. And someone else was in charge of getting like the banner for it, and everything that everyone does just falls apart completely. Tom doesn't get enough carpet. The stage, they got pulled over earlier in the episode, and they had to unload some wood because they were driving around with it illegally. So he built this like tiny little sad stage. The banner got way blown up, so it's only part of her face. And then they have Champion, the 3-legged dog. And they're all walking, and like they get to the end of the carpet, and there's still so much ice for them to walk before they get to the stage. And like they keep playing that song, like "Get on your feet," and like they just keep replaying it, and then it like the song loop ends, and it's just quiet, and they're like struggling, shuffling on the ice, and like slipping, and so they start playing it again. Get on your feet, and dude, that episode is just fucking absolute gold. And
So
then
good.
on top of that, I don't know if this is the same episode or a different one. If it's the same episode, even better. But it is also the episode when Ben, Adam Scott's character, is wildly depressed because he's out of a job. And he's just like trying to find his passion. He's doing everything from making calzones to like comes up with the calzone restaurant where it's called the Low Cal Calzone Zone. And it's fast casual eating.
Shit.
And he makes the stop motion, and in his head he's like made this full feature, and it's only like 5 seconds long.
Yes.
And I just love that, man. I don't know. I love both of those. I think they're 2 separate episodes.
Right. I know that's the hard part, is like in my head, my favorite episode might be like 3 different episodes.
Right.
I don't know.
But maybe they're not, because I have a feeling like everyone gets back. No, that's the
when
same
they
episode.
Make him the campaign manager.
Yeah,
because,
so it is the same episode
so
because they
bad.
get back from that mess of a campaign,
Yeah.
and she hires Ben to be her camping manager.
Right.
So, I mean, what a brilliant episode. Just so much going on. And I love that episode.
And they'll fit a lot into a 20-minute, runtime.
Yeah,
which
as
is
I'm
what
saying
the
that out
typical-
loud, I'm like thinking, was that 2 episodes? Because it sounds like a lot, but it's 1 episode and 20
they
minutes.
can do
there
it
you go.
and they flow it.
Yeah.
Seamless.
They do it well.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
So a quick shout out I think we have to do to one of the best characters in this show.
Sure.
Jean Ralphio.
Oh, I love John
come
Ralphio,
on now.
man. I mean, you talk about Ryan, right? Who in
Yeah.
The Office is the character you love to hate.
Yes.
That is John Ralphio in this show.
Yeah,
you
it's
love
almost-
to hate him.
It's almost like Jean Ralphio and Aziz are kind of like they give me that what I felt about Mindy's character in The Office. They kind of give you that. They're like that, very big baller, modern, very into pop culture, that kind of feeling. And I like that they bring that, but they also bring a different style because Mindy had more of like the People magazine version. Yeah. And like Aziz and John Ralphio have more like the Dr. Dre 50 Cent Gucci Mane version.
What Tom has a watch and it says baller time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just has to be, that's someone who, and I would maybe argue that Parks and Rec's little side characters might be a little funnier than The Office's.
I could see that. I would agree with that.
Because just thinking about John Ralphio himself.
Oh, yeah, man. I love the little like singing thing he does. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, but he does this singing thing where he'll be like, "'Cause I got hit by a school bus." Got hit by a school bus.
Does it too.
Yeah, and his sister. Oh, yeah, and then you've got what's the actress's name? She's great, Jenny Slate.
Oh, Jenny Slate is so
plays his
funny.
sister, and then the two of them come together. And Henry Winkler, the Fonz from Happy Days, is their dad.
Oh my God,
come on,
brilliant. So I'm gonna make a declaration.
Okay.
We've talked about this enough. In my head, I've made a declaration.
Beautiful.
So, do I want to make this declaration now? This is tough. I'm going to say it. Fuck it. The Office writes characters better. Parks and Recs has better characters.
And I think, wow, oh man, that's a hard declaration.
That's hard.
I almost said better characters, Parks and Rec better stories.
I was gonna also double on that, and I was gonna say Parks and Rec better written story. The Office, I don't know what I was gonna say to The Office on that point, but that at least And then characters, I almost got because I thought the way Ron Swanson is written almost makes that obsolete. But at the end of the day, that's the point of better character. And so Office, better written characters because each character is written so well. And even though the Parks and Rec has maybe funnier, like lesser characters, I think it's a matter of like, I think it's a little more on the nose of just like they're funnier, but I don't know if they're better written necessarily. Where The Office's, all their characters and even their minor characters seem to be very calculated, even if they're not as funny. Yeah. So that's my first take.
Okay.
Between the two.
Interesting. And it's so hard, man. It's so hard to like declare officially which show is better. And I don't even know that can be a conversation. Right. I think you do have to break it down. Like the characters in this show are better, but the characters in this show are funnier. Right. The characters in this show are more memorable, but the characters in this show are more quotable. Right. It almost has to be done that way. Cause I mean, they're just, I don't know. How do you pick? Right. You at home voted. We put a poll out.
They did? I forgot.
Yeah. We put a poll out. And so I'm going to read what the people said while you talk about what you think.
I think that everyone tries to figure out which show is better. Yeah. Personally, I don't think that you can really decide that. Sure. Each show is different and created beautifully in its own way. Of course. That you can't categorize it to be this one's better, this one's better. Right. It's their own show, their own storyline, their own people. Are there similarities? 100%. Right. Same style, same type of, maybe you can even say almost same type of storyline in a certain way. But I don't think you can really declare one as better than the other. Yeah. And to talk about what you said earlier about you having more episodes like the dinner party in Parks and Rec than for The Office. Maybe that's also what makes The Office so catching is there's not a lot of those moments. Right. So it really drives it home for you. Like, wow, that captured me. That was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's it. I mean, yeah, it's great to have more of those, which is also why Parks and Rec is awesome. I love Parks and Rec. But I don't know if you can really say that one is better than the other.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of that. And I am going to say that maybe my take then would be like Parks and Rec might have a better running narrative, to your point about The Thing.
Yeah.
But overall as a show, The Office might be better just because it literally, and I know what we're not going to do is what you said, because you're right. Each show stands on its own, and it's silly almost to try and say, oh, this one's better. But thinking about what makes The Office, what elevates The Office a tinge bit is its focus on the heartwarming moment and its ability to bypass the comedy for the heartwarming moment. And that makes it a little bit more balanced.
To be completely honest, I hated Parks and Rec. I actually used to think that it was trying too hard to be The Office.
Right.
And it made me not want to watch it. Then one day I said, pretty much, fuck it. And I watched it. And I realized this is not The Office. It's not trying to be The Office.
Yes.
It's very different.
So I guess for me, I'll put it this way. If faced with the two shows, I would say majority of the time, if I'm going to sit down and watch one, majority of the time I'm going to pick The Office.
Right.
Do with that information what you will. Take it how you will. If you think that means I think that one's better or whatever. I think for me, Parks and Rec is more of a mood. Like I almost had, like now that I've talked about it, I'm like, yeah, I want to go watch that episode I just talked about. And I'll probably end up watching 10 more episodes of it after that. Right.
Of course.
But yeah, majority of the time, if I'm just going to sit down and pick one of the two shows, I'm probably picking The Office.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm a little more biased because that's the one I, in a sense, grew up with first. That's the one that caught my attention and I watched as it happened. Whereas Parks and Rec was completely over when I watched it.
Okay.
And I did watch the whole thing. But I think for me, 9 times out of 10, I'm picking The Office.
I agree. I agree with the mood deal. It really does. And The Office, that's the thing about The Office, is it's adaptable to any mood.
Yeah.
It really is. You can watch it when you're happy. You can watch it when you're sad.
Watch it when you're sick. Watch it when you're healthy.
You could play it in the background at a party.
Yes.
You know?
I'd love to go to that party.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
So now the people at home.
Yeah. I want to
We
know
asked
what
you
they thought.
listeners. I put, this week we asked the big question. Office versus Parks and Rec. Who you got? You ready for these results?
I am so ready. I'm
curious what
nervous.
you think because you haven't looked at the story.
I didn't look at the story, and I have access to the story because from the Red Band podcast Instagram, I send direct messages to Kanye, and I push his buttons so that he does more crazy shit.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I use our Instagram for. You know what I mean? I
Absolutely.
also send direct messages to Hillary Clinton, and I say I know about the emails. I tell her that directly into her DMs on Instagram.
Perfect.
So I didn't look at the poll.
Okay.
I'm gonna say they chose The Office.
Okay. What do you think?
I'd probably say they chose The Office.
68% of our voters chose The Office.
Okay.
Against 32% chose Parks and Rec.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So The Office, when put out to the people, more than half, 68% of people chose The Office over Parks and Rec.
I think that's a good gauge for if we sent that survey out to the population.
Yeah, and I think that's also a good gauge for myself. I know I said 9 times out of 10, but I think that's 68% of the time I'm feeling The Office, 32% of the time I'm feeling Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
And you know what? I voted for The Office on that poll.
You did.
Yeah,
Okay.
he did.
And here's why.
So did my other brother.
I wonder
You
what my brother
can't-
voted.
When it's a poll, I mean, this is a discussion.
Yeah.
You can really, dive in. On a poll, it's a very yes or no. And about 90% of the time, I'm very yes. Because it is something that I could put it on and just listen to it while I'm like taking a shower or something.
Yeah.
Cooking, sleeping, eating, crying, laughing.
Yeah.
Like, it's just there. It is very much a weighted blanket.
I would also, on the record, my brother, he also chose The Office.
Okay.
My brother chose The Office as well. So I guess we're Office people.
Majority of our followers definitely chose The Office.
We got a lot more
Not
votes
sponsored.
than I thought.
I am in a Dunder Mifflin hoodie.
Yes,
You are.
That is true. And he has a Dunder Mifflin robe, the same one that Steve Carell has on the show.
Yeah, there you go.
I have a Dundee as well.
Oh, I love that.
And right over here, I've got my Dwight Schrute bobblehead.
Yes, I love that.
And I have the Michael Clump right here.
That's fucking amazing.
We'll
That's
post,
a good one.
we'll post some pictures or something like that.
We should.
Talking about it.
When I reunite with my whole pop collection, I have almost all of the Office pops.
Really?
I got him for Christmas one year. It was a Jan Levinson pop, and she has like one of her scented candles from the dinner party episode.
It was perfect.
That's so fucking
And she's
amazing.
wearing the like red dress that she's wearing in it. Excellent.
And I guess that's a good point to make is the Office memorabilia.
Yes.
There is no... I mean, there's probably Parks and Rec memorabilia.
Absolutely.
But I know it ain't flying off the shelves.
World's best boss mug.
Yes.
Come on.
Who hasn't had one of those?
Yeah.
Who hasn't like? Well, I don't have one of those, but
I would love one.
who hasn't seen one of those?
Yeah.
You got the Office like sign thing that looks like a bathroom kind of
Yeah.
sign.
I also have that.
He has that. I mean,
It's just good at the end of the day, right? What's the true nature of the conversation? We live in the fucking golden era of television
and comedy.
and comedy.
There are so many great comedies right now that are consistently great.
Yes. It's like, thank you. Like, regardless of who's better, what's better, it's all so good. And we are so grateful to plug into the Matrix and watch our shows, baby. Oh, I love it. I'll never let it go.
Yes. Well, this was cool. This was interesting. I didn't get the answers out of it that I thought I was going to get.
Right.
So that was good. That's a good exploration.
Exploration. I like doing it on the fly and kind of coming to these types of conclusions. I mean, if you had to say based on what we went, I think we're calling it Office.
Yeah.
But literally Parks and Rec is right there. And
Bro, I mean,
it's not worse.
You
than
can't
The
go
Office.
wrong with either show.
Yeah.
That's really the end message is like majority of the time we're picking Office, but you can't go wrong
Right.
with either one. I'm curious what you at home, a lot of you voted, 68% of you, so I'm assuming the trend would be the same. If you didn't vote on our Instagram, let us know what you would pick.
Right.
Whenever you hear this episode, put it out there and just share the show with what your answer is. Share the screen capture of our Spotify or Apple, wherever you're listening to our logo, and just put what your answer is. Share it out there. We want to know. I want to know.
us.
The people want to know.
The people want to know. Yeah, come for us. If you think anything we said was absolutely blasphemous, please.
Yeah. I would love to hear your contrarian opinions about it.
They're like the best show. Actually, the best show on television was I don't know, fucking the best show on television was the Colbert Report. I don't know.
And the person who speaks like that is exactly the person who would come for us. If you talk like that in real life, I'm not taking you seriously.
Oh God.
So, hey, thanks to our special guest and mockumentary style TV show enthusiast Noah for stopping by.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you all for listening. Like the show. Give us some ratings. We got ratings now on Spotify and Apple where you can rate the show. Let us know what you're thinking. If you hate it, let us know why so we can make it better. If you love it, show us that love. Share, like, retweet, comment, whatever you got to do.
Check out the Z Team.
Yeah, check out the Z Team. My personal take on mockumentary style. I did it in college like 4 or 5 years ago, and $0 on that. So there you go.
That's a good brother.
That's a good, yeah. Thank you, Red Band, and we will see you next week.
Lights, camera, action.
And nothing unites people like someone dying.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's sad and it's true though.
The candy corn industry is a money laundering front.
What's the worst like acid trip you've ever had?
Well, this is Red Band Podcast, baby. Movies, music, conspiracies, deep existential crises. It's all inside and it's all unfiltered. So let's get started.